Hey guys, so today I'm here with the Barricade Extreme HD rear bumper fitting all 2018 and newer JL Wranglers. So this is going to be for the JL owner looking to add some functionality as well as an overall aggressive aesthetic to the rear end of their Wrangler with a very functional rear bumper. Now this is going to offer a number of different benefits, including full rear end protection for those harder hits on the trail, and this is also going to offer a couple of recovery points on the back for those sticky situations on the trail. Not to mention, this is going to include a couple of different features and benefits that other options are unable to offer you, even at that same price point, like a recovery hitch or a tow hitch. And then you're also getting a license plate relocation bracket with this kit that includes lighting for that license plate. Now this is also going to come with the option to add a heavy-duty tire carrier down the line. So if you are thinking about upgrading to larger wheels and tires, you also have that option when choosing this rear bumper. Now overall, this is going to add an aggressive and off-road aesthetic to the rear end of your Wrangler, and it's going to match with any other heavy-duty accessories or heavy-duty armor that you already have mounted up to your Wrangler. Now this is going to be pretty affordable for what this package comes with at roughly $540. Now this is going to come with a number of different benefits that a lot of less expensive options are unable to offer you. So other less expensive choices are usually going to be for more simplistic designs as well as tubular designs, which will not offer that solid rear end protection. They may offer some protection, but this is going to offer a bit more coverage, and they're also not going to usually offer any recovery points with that. Now on the other hand, more expensive choices are usually just going to come with some more features. Some may come with some additional lighting, maybe some LED lighting integrated into the bumper. They may come with those pre-drilled holes for those JL owners who have those backup sensors in their stock rear bumper that want to transfer them over, and then even just designs that have some higher quality materials. So overall, in my personal opinion, I do think that this is a very inclusive kit for the price point that it's at. This offers all the standard benefits as well as a couple of extra benefits at a very affordable price, and it looks really good while doing it. So install is going to be a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, guys. It's probably going to take you an hour to get bolted up with some very basic hand tools. So speaking of the install, let's jump into that now. The tools that I used for my install were an impact wrench, an 18mm socket, a 1/2 inch drive and 3/8 inch drive ratchet, the ratchet from your Mopar JL toolkit, a pair of wire strippers, crimpers, and cutters, a pair of pliers, the T40 Torx bit from the JL toolkit, an 8mm deep socket, a flathead screwdriver, an 18mm and 16mm 7/8 inch and 21mm shallow socket, a 6-spline lug nut key, and an impact ratchet. So our first step is going to be to get our spare tire out of the way. Now you have a Mopar toolkit in your JL, so you're going to need the T40 Torx bit and the ratchet out of that kit. And we're going to go ahead and remove the cover off of our camera so we can slide our spare tire off. So first thing we have to do is take this T40 Torx and just unlock this cover. Once it's unlocked, we can just pull back on that, and then we'll be able to get our spare tire off. So this step is going to depend on what lug nuts you have on your Wrangler. I'm using our lug nut key as well as a 7/8 inch socket, and I'm going to remove our lug nuts on our JL. So once those 3 lug nuts are off, we can fully remove our spare tire. So our next step is going to be inside this wheel well here. We have to remove a trim piece in order to expose the bolts that are holding on our bumper onto our frame. Now you are going to need an 8mm socket as well as a ratchet to get that off, and we can head underneath the Jeep. So there are going to be 3 bolts holding on this trim piece. There's going to be 1 at the front and then 2 in the rear. I'm going to start with this one in the front with my 8mm deep socket. You can also use a hand ratchet as well. I'm just using an air ratchet just to speed up the process. Now we're going to take out the back 2 bolts. Now I can remove this trim piece, get it out of the way, and that's going to expose these 2 bolts on the frame. Now I'm going to remove these 2 frame bolts using a 16mm socket. Now we can repeat that process on the other side. So you can do this next step one of two ways to fully remove the bumper. What I'm gonna do is remove the bumper from the primary bracket here. You can remove the bracket from the frame, but to give you guys a better visual of what we're gonna do next, I'm going to remove the bumper from the bracket with a 16mm socket. So while we're also on the driver's side, we want to make sure to disconnect our harness that is for the license plate light. So I'm just going to press that tab down and pull that away. Now we can move over to the other side and remove our 2 bolts on our bumper bracket. So now we can remove our rear bumper. So you are going to have to wiggle those side brackets around the frame. It may kick off the little spring clips that we're holding on those bolts for the trim piece. However, we can wiggle that off. So our next step is just to take this bracket off. This was originally attached to our bumper. Like I said, there was 2 different ways to do this. You could either take the bolts out of the frame, or you could take the bolts out of the bumper. I wanted to give you guys a better visual, so I took the bolts out of the bumper, but I'm going to use a 21mm socket in my impact to remove these 2 bolts on the passenger side. So for the driver's side, you're gonna have 2 of the same bolts that you had on the passenger side on the side here, and then you're gonna have 2 at the bottom since we do have the tow hook on the driver's side. So I'm gonna take that 21mm socket, remove those side bolts, and then we'll remove the bottom bolts. So we can finagle this bracket out. Then we can remove these 2 bottom bolts that are holding in the rest of our tow hook. So now we're going to remove these 2 bottom bolts that are holding in the rest of our tow hook. Make sure you have a hand on your tow hook. This is going to fall once you remove that last bolt, but it's going to be that same 21mm socket. So before we go ahead and mount up our new bumper, I did want to tell you guys a little bit more about it, especially in comparison to our factory rear bumper. So right off the bat, you can tell that it's the same size. It's still going to offer you all of that full length rear end protection. However, it's going to be a lot more durable, made of a 3/16" plated steel, instead of your plastic that can get damaged on the trail if you do take too hard of a hit. Now that steel underneath is going to be protected with a wrinkle black powder coat finish, which is going to obviously protect that steel from any rust or corrosion, but what it's also going to do is help you achieve a aggressive and off-road look to the rear end of your Wrangler. Now you are getting a couple of different benefits out of this rear bumper that your stock bumper is unable to offer you. You are getting 2 recovery points, 2 D-ring mounts on either side that are welded up and can take about 9,500 pounds of force. Then you also have a larger cutout in the middle. This is going to help you out if you want to upgrade to larger wheels and tires, and your stock bumper is just not able to allow it with that smaller cutout on the bottom there. And then you also get a hitch with this kit. Now this can be used as a recovery point. You can also mount up hitch mounted accessories, and you can even tow with this up to the tow rating of the Jeep, because let's face it, you can't really tow with a Jeep. Now this is going to be the bumper just by itself, but this is also going to be compatible with a tire carrier, the Barricade Extreme HD tire carrier. So we do have a block off plate in our situation that we're not going to be mounting that up. However, this is compatible if you did want to add a heavy-duty tire carrier down the road. Now, the only thing that I don't like about this bumper, or that I think that Barricade could add, is just some pre-drilled holes for the people that have those backup sensors in the back. However, if you do have those backup sensors, you can either drill the holes and transfer over that hardware from the factory bumper, or you can go ahead and delete them. So enough about these two side by side, let's go ahead and mount up our new bumper. So the first step of our install is very easy. We do have a welded nut plate that we have to insert on the passenger side frame rail. This is going to act as 2 more attachment points, since we already have 4 attachment points on the driver's side. So all you have to do is just slide that in, and then we can go ahead and mount up our hitch. So what we're gonna do first with our hitch is mount up the actual hitch part and kind of hang it there so we can install our back plate on there. So I'm gonna take our longer hardware with 1 flat washer, stick that through the frame rail on either side, and that should be able to sit by itself for a minute while we grab our back plate. Now I'm gonna give you guys a better visual after this is semi-secured so we can head underneath the Jeep. But you are gonna get a back plate here. You're gonna have the 4 holes up at the top. Those are going to go behind here, in between the frame rail and the muffler. We're going to hang that on the back there, and then we can take our flat washer, lock washer, and nut and secure that to the frame. So flat washer, lock washer, and then the nut. I just want to make sure that this is secured, so before we head underneath the Jeep, this is not going to fall on us because it is really heavy. So now, since the hitch is hanging and secured, we are going to take the other 2 longer bolts that go through the frame rail and just put them through the hitch, the frame rail, and the back plate. All right, so once those are through, we can take our flat washer, lock washer, and our nut and thread that on. It is going to be a little bit difficult with this muffler in the way, but it's definitely doable. So I'm just going to snug those up. And then we can move on to the lower 2 bolts. Now there's going to be 2 lower bolts on either side of the hitch. So now we can take our shorter hardware down to these 2 bolt holes on either side of the hitch and secure that down. So now we can go ahead and tighten them down. I'm going to start with these lower bolts. I'm using an 18mm socket as well as an 18mm wrench. So for the top frame bolts, I'm going to be using that same 18mm socket and 18mm wrench. So at this point we can mount up our bumper. I'd recommend a friend since this is heavy. And we can line it up with those bottom and side holes on the frame and rest it on the hitch. So now we can take our hardware that is going to match up with the factory. It's going to be the larger bolt, lock washer, and flat washer. And we can thread that in the side of our frame where our factory hardware was removed. Now I want to just get everything threaded in. So we're going to move on to these bottom 2 holes next, and then we can tighten everything down once we have all of our hardware attached. So we can go ahead and thread in the same style hardware into the bottom 2 holes in our threaded nut plate. Now again, we do want to get the other side attached before we go ahead and tighten everything down. So after those are threaded in, we can move to the other side. So now we can go ahead and tighten up all of our bolts using that 21mm socket that we used to remove our factory hardware. So now for the side bolts, I am going to use a hand ratchet just because we don't have a lot of room here on the side, but I'm still using that 21mm socket. Now we can tighten up the other side. Now we can tighten up these two. I'm using a hand ratchet on the bottom here just because I don't have a lot of room with the muffler here. So if you're not installing the heavy-duty tire carrier with this bumper, you are going to install the block-off plate to cover up this hole here. So all you have to do is place that over the threaded holes in the bumper. Then we can take our provided button head bolt hardware as well as the flat washer and lock washer and thread that into the threaded holes. Now you can take your provided Allen key once they're threaded in most of the way, and we can tighten those fully down. So now we can install the other side of our block-off plate or your license plate relocation bracket. So you are provided a block-off plate for here, or you can take your license plate relocation bracket, put it over those 3 holes. You do have 3 holes here in the bumper. That's going to be for a tire carrier. Now, if you are going to use that tire carrier in the future as well as this bracket, you are going to have to drill a hole in this bracket. However, we're not utilizing that right now. So we're going to place this over and do the same thing we did with our block-off plate on the other side. So our next step is to wire up our license plate lighting and to mount up our license plate. But first we have to put in this gasket. This is going to go in the hole underneath our license plate relocation bracket. This is going to protect our wires and make sure that it's not rubbing up on the metal, damaging our wires. So all you have to do is just squeeze it and work it into place. So these license plate lights do have a threaded post on them. We're going to sandwich the license plate in between the bracket and this bolt, or the light bolt, with the flat washer and the nut. So what we have to do is go ahead and take our license plate. We can thread the wires through that, then thread the wires through our bumper, making sure we put the washer and the nut on the other side. This may be a little bit tricky to do at first. Once you get the first one done, it should be pretty easy. I'm going to throw the nut through. Put this up into place. Then we can move the nut and the flat washer up and thread that on. Now you do want to make sure that this little LED is facing down, but we want to get this into place first. We can do the same thing with the other one. So the nut and the flat washer will come pre-installed on here. Just going to take that off. So we want to make sure that these wires are down so we can route them through that hole in the bumper and wire them into our existing harness on the other side. So now we can just snug those up with a 10mm wrench. They don't have to be too tight. We just want to make sure that they're not going anywhere. Also that that LED is facing downward onto your license plate. And you can do the same thing for the other post. And then we can route these wires through the bumper and start our wiring. So now we can wire in our lights to our factory wiring harness for our license plate light. Now I am going to be using vampire clips in order to wire these up. You can do this a number of different ways. If you are splicing into this directly and actually cutting this harness, I would recommend to add a quick disconnect just in case you have to take your bumper off in the future. However, I am just going to hook the positive blue, or the white wire with a blue trace. I'm gonna hook that onto there. Then I'm going to grab both of my positive wires and twist those together since we have two lights. So those are twisted together. So once you have all of those wires in there, you can clamp that down. I like to use a pair of pliers just to clamp that down and set that in place. And then you can clip that over. Or you can do the same thing for the negative wires. All right, now I would recommend to hit that with a little bit of electrical tape, but after that, all you have to do is put your spare tire on and you're all set to go. So that's going to wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.